Hello and welcome to Oh Yes, I'm the Great Imposter, flipping the script on imposter syndrome. My name is Lisa Ventura and I've struggled with imposter syndrome my entire life. No matter what I've done in my life, my work and my career, I've always had voices in my head saying all sorts of things like, I'm a fraud or I'll be found out at any second. That award was meant for somebody else, not me. Other people are way better than me, or I don't deserve this. Imposter syndrome is something that definitely affects most of us in some way or another. It is debilitating and gets in the way of us following our dreams and goals, and gets in the way of us being our best selves and living our best lives. So today I'm going to talk about how you can flip the script on imposter syndrome and how you can manage it. So what is imposter syndrome? Well, it was first discovered in 1978, and it refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. While this definition is usually narrowly applied to intelligence and achievement, it also has strong links to perfectionism and the social context. It is often characterized by strong feelings of inadequacy and debilitating thoughts that are often around your career in terms of achievements and reaching your goals. And studies have shown that many high achievers also suffer from imposter syndrome. Studies today also show that at least 70% of people have suffered imposter syndrome in some form. And as I've previously mentioned, although imposter syndrome can affect anyone regardless of job and social status, those who are high achievers or perfectionists will often experience it more. Throughout my entire life, I've always been a perfectionist, and I've always strived to achieve more, do more and be more. And that means I'm classed as a high achiever. In 2018, I was diagnosed as actually autistic. And following my diagnosis, I started to recognize that the thoughts I was having about not being good enough were holding me back. And I resolved to do something about managing them. I'm a huge fan of the rock band Queen and Freddie Mercury. And so the turning point for me was when I saw the film Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time, not long after my diagnosis. There was a line in the film delivered by Queen's manager, Jim Miami Beach, and the line was, "Fortune favours the bold." And from that moment onwards, I resolved to try to manage the voices in my head that were constantly telling me that I was not good enough and that I didn't deserve any of my achievements. And I decided that I would flip the script on them. So here are a few of the thoughts that you might recognize that might be going around your head. Sometimes I feel that I'm beating myself up because I feel like I just can't do enough. There is just so much that needs to be done. I feel like a fraud every single day. It's a constant struggle, but I have to remind myself that sometimes you have to be the best person to do something, even if you don't think you're supposed to be that person. I've doubted myself in every career move I've ever made. In leadership, you're expected to have all the answers, but most of the time I'm just guessing and hoping for the best. With every new challenge, I doubt my ability to act and make the right call because I know I don't really have all the right information, yet I don't have time to waste on getting that information before making a judgment call. And if you recognize yourself in any of these statements, you are suffering from imposter syndrome. So as you can see, everyone feels like an imposter sometimes, and that's absolutely okay. If you've ever felt like this, you're not alone and you're in very good company. What is important is how you deal with it and how you manage it so that it doesn't stop you from living your best life, achieving your goals and being the very best you can be. And it might surprise you to know that even celebrities often suffer from imposter syndrome. The civil rights activist, author and poet and Nobel laureate Maya Angelou admitted that at times she often felt like a fraud, once saying, "I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find me out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out." Even the singer David Bowie shared his struggles with self-esteem. However, he covered his feelings of inadequacy with constant work. During an interview before his death, he shared, I had enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem, which I hid behind obsessive writing and performing. I was driven to get through life very quickly. I really felt so utterly inadequate. I thought the work was the only thing of value. And finally, my all-time favourite singer, rock star, and love of my life, Freddie Mercury, was plagued by imposter syndrome. He would often be physically sick before every live concert that Queen gave. And every time he came off stage, he would turn to the rest of the band and would say, "Was I all right, darlings? Do you think that they liked me?" This was the guy that had over 1 billion people all over the world in the palm of his hand during Queen's iconic Live Aid performance on the 13th of July in 1985. And of course, Freddie Mercury was loved by many, many people all over the world, including me, yet he still thought that nobody liked him or his singing. Incredible. Which brings me on to another thing that I've learned while researching imposter syndrome. Thanks in part to social media, our expectation of what reality should be is higher. Then when reality doesn't match up to what we think it should be in our minds, our disappointment levels are higher. We all filter our lives in social media, especially on Instagram, where the pressure is on to post the most perfect photos of our most perfect lives. This in turn leads to poor mental health. And in a way, it's no wonder we struggle with mental health today as much as we do. Putting aside the global 19 pandemic, there's so much pressure to be absolutely perfect on us all the time. When I was diagnosed as autistic in 2018, I decided to take the mask off that I had been living behind my entire life. I decided to be truthful about what I consider to be my weird and strange interests that I have in my spare time. So, for example, since the age of 15, when I was made to watch the BBC docudrama Threads about nuclear war in the UK at school, which is something that would never happen today, I became fascinated with everything to do with nuclear war. I'm obsessed, if you hadn't guessed already, with the rock band Queen and Freddie Mercury. I love watching American soap operas from the 80s, such as Dallas, Dynasty, Knots Landing, The Colbys and Falcon Crest. I love heavy metal music. But I kept all this hidden for years for fear of what people would think of me. And today, I share my interests and I share my struggles. I share openly that in 2013, I lost my only son to stillbirth, and I share what it's like to live every day since then as an empty-armed mother. I share that my dad was diagnosed with a rare form of encephalitis last year after I'd been fighting the NHS for a definitive diagnosis for him for over 3 years, and what it's like to care for him on a day-to-day basis. I share how all the challenges, hurts and betrayals that I've had throughout my life, sometimes from family and friends, have affected me and how I use those experiences to stand taller and achieve more. I started to share the real me on social media. I stopped filtering my interests, my work and my achievements. I shared my struggles and my challenges openly. And you know what? This had a positive impact on my imposter syndrome. Now, I want to stress that it did not go away. I don't think that my imposter syndrome will ever go away, but it did lessen, and I did start to recognize when those debilitating thoughts were impacting me and my work. I stopped saying no to opportunities when they came my way. I was always getting asked to speak at conferences and events or to write articles because of my expertise in cybersecurity, and in particular with cybersecurity awareness training. Sometimes I'd get so far with an opportunity and then my imposter syndrome would kick in. I would hear in my head, "They didn't mean to approach you, they meant to ask somebody else." Or, "You can't do this, you're a fake and a fraud and they will find you out at any moment." So I would pull out to the opportunity and say I couldn't do it. I would stop responding to requests and to emails. And then as quickly as I had said no, I would regret saying no. It was such a vicious circle. So I resolved to break that cycle and say yes more than I said no. It was very scary, but it was also very empowering. So how do we flip the script on imposter syndrome? Wouldn't we all like to feel confident and assured in our abilities all the time? I know I would, but I also know that feeling like that isn't a realistic goal. So I'm going to share a few tips that will hopefully help you all to flip the script on imposter syndrome and kick it to the curb where it belongs. So my first tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is follow your own path. Don't compare yourself to others. There are always going to be people out there with more skills than you. There is always going to be somebody more attractive than you, higher up the career ladder than you, thinner than you, or, well, quite frankly, better than you. Do you know what? For me, I honestly don't care, and neither should you. You are unique, and you should follow your own path and not look at what others are doing. Their paths are their paths. They've had different life experiences, different careers, different struggles, and different life challenges. I'd like to share a personal experience of how much imposter syndrome affected me and how I managed to flip the script on it. A few years ago, after thinking about it for a long time, I had an idea to launch a trade association in cybersecurity, but my imposter syndrome stopped me. I'd been in the cybersecurity industry since 2009, but in my head I was thinking, I can't do this. People will think I'm a fraud. I don't have the right skills to launch a trade association. I'm not talented enough to launch a trade association. The list just goes on. I was always looking around at what other people were doing in the cybersecurity industry, and every time I got close to launching it, I panicked, thinking I wasn't good enough, that there were people out there that were much better qualified than me to launch it. In the end, it was through coaching sessions with my coach, Christina Magro, that I finally flipped the script on those thoughts and decided to go ahead with launching the association, despite some significant personal challenges, especially around my dad and his rare autoimmune illness. My coach said to me that in her eyes, there was no one better qualified than me to launch it. I was connected, well known in the cybersecurity industry, and I'd launched similar initiatives and festivals in the past which were successful. So I had a lot of transferable skills that would stand me in good stead to launching the UK Cybersecurity Association. And slowly I realised that she was right. And so my trade association in cybersecurity was born. My next tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is to be proud of and acknowledge your achievements. And believe me, I know that this is easier said than done. After I launched the UK Cybersecurity Association, I suddenly found myself in high demand. But unlike before, I was determined to make the most of every opportunity that came my way. I said yes to numerous speaking engagements. I said yes to writing articles and blogs for key publications such as InfoSecurity magazine, Computer Weekly magazine, Sophos's Naked Security blog, and many, many more. I said yes to being interviewed, being on podcasts and video chats as a guest, and appearing at events as a panelist and speaker. And then eventually, the awards and nominations started coming. I won SC Magazine's Outstanding Contribution to Cybersecurity Award, Cybersecurity's UK Cybersecurity Personality of the Year Award, Women in Cybersecurity's USA Supporter of Women Award. I won a Tech 100 Women Award, and I won Security Excellence's Woman of the Year Award. I was also included in SC Magazine's Top 50 Women in Cybersecurity list in 2019, named as InfoSec Superwoman of the Year CISO magazine in 2020, and included in SC Magazine's Top 30 Women of Influence in Cybersecurity during the pandemic. One of my biggest achievements, though, has becoming a finalist for ITV's National Diversity Awards in the Positive Role Model gender category. Boy, my imposter syndrome really went through the roof then when I heard that news. I still don't know the outcome of this, though, as the awards are being postponed several times due to COVID-19. But every time I was a finalist for or won an award, my imposter syndrome would go into overdrive. I would always be thinking, I'm such a fraud. They've got it wrong. This wasn't meant for me. When I won SC Magazine's Outstanding Contribution to Cybersecurity Award, I didn't even go to the ceremony. Before the ceremony took place, I thought I had absolutely no chance of winning it. And I found out that I'd won the award from their Twitter account. So how did I start acknowledging and being proud of my achievements? Well, I flip the script to use them for good. And by that, I mean I use my awards and my experiences to inspire others to enter the cybersecurity industry, especially women and those who are neurodiverse. The cybersecurity industry has a huge skills gap and gender imbalance. So if I can encourage just one other person to consider a career in the cybersecurity industry because they've looked at me, my awards and my achievements, then I'll be happy. My next tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is don't strive to be perfect, strive to be excellent. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge perfectionist. One of my hobbies is bullet journaling. And when I'm creating spreads in my bullet journals, I've been known to rip out pages if I make just one small mistake and start all over again. And that's even if I've taken hours creating that spread in my bullet journal. I have to have everything around me in perfect order. My day has to run to a perfect schedule. I'll go through draft after draft after draft of a blog or article until I think that it's perfect. I know that this is in part of my being autistic. I have to have a schedule and everything has to run like clockwork. And it makes me feel very uncomfortable if there are changes to my day or planned schedule and routine. So flipping the script on being a perfectionist is probably the hardest thing I've had to do. Perfectionism is often a way to make sure you don't fail, but a prevention mindset is hardly the best one for creativity and innovative thinking. So to try and combat this, I focused on the worst case scenario and how unlikely it is to occur, and realised there's probably something I can do, even if that worst case scenario was to happen. I now have bullet journals with pages that have mistakes on and are not turned out. I send off blogs and articles after a couple of drafts instead of several, and 9 times out of 10 they're accepted. I don't have to have anything in its place anymore. This is hard and I struggle with it every day, but I no longer strive to be perfect. I strive to be excellent, and there's a huge difference. Another one of my coping mechanisms for managing my imposter syndrome is a success journal that I started. It doesn't have to be a journal. It could be a success digital file, whatever works best for you. But whatever format you choose, this is the place to log all your successes, achievements, and goals that you've attained. My success journal is in the form of a bullet journal, and I create spreads that detail all my achievements. I also stick photos in my success bullet journal and include things that inspire me in it, such as quotes. Then when my imposter syndrome starts creeping in, I look through my success bullet journal and I focus on how far I've come and what I've achieved. Having a success bullet journal really works for me. And when imposter syndrome strikes, look through your file or journal and give yourself a huge pat on the back for how far you've come. So to summarise, my tips for helping you flip the script on imposter syndrome are: get rid of your social media filter. Put out an authentic image of yourself to the world. People will see through anything else. Follow your own path. Don't walk or run down somebody else's. Comparing yourself to others is detrimental. Be proud of and acknowledge your achievements. You achieve things because of your hard work, your skills, and your talent. Don't strive to be perfect. Do your best and strive to be excellent instead. And if you fail, so what? Try again. Start a success file or journal. Find a format that works for you to record your achievements in. When imposter syndrome strikes, look back through your file and journal and give yourself a huge pat on the back for how far you've come. So as I end this talk, I'd like to mention that myself and 2 colleagues, Nat Schooler and Kim Adele, will be launching International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day on Tuesday, the 13th of April this year. And that's to raise awareness of the phenomenon of imposter syndrome and to provide resources to help those that are struggling with it. So on the day, we'll host online events and webinars. We'll have a social media campaign with the hashtag IISAD 2021. We'll share personal experiences of our struggles with imposter syndrome and also from those that have been affected by it. We'll also share inspiring podcasts from the Influential Visions Imposter Syndrome series hosted by Nat Schooler. and we'll also host a session in Clubhouse on the imposter syndrome phenomenon. Around all this, we're launching a book called The Great Imposter, Managing Imposter Syndrome at the end of June this year, or before if it's ready. And this book will be a collection of accounts and expert insights into imposter syndrome, and will cover how business leaders manage it on a day-to-day basis. So if you'd like to find out more or get involved in International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, please email me via info@cybersecurityassociation.co.uk. As well as the Awareness Day and book that I'll be launching with Nat and Kim, you can also find out more about imposter syndrome on the Influential Visions podcast series via influentialvisions.com, and these are both run by Nat and Kim. I hope my talk on flipping the script on imposter syndrome has been helpful and useful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me via info@cybersecurityassociation.co.uk or reach out to me on Twitter via CyberGeekGirl, and I'll try to help you. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it and got something useful out of the talk.